This week for the traditional quilt block series, I have two blocks for you. They're both full of half square triangles and they're both very easy. I have the friendship star and broken dishes. I've never done broken dishes before this, so it's actually a really fun block. It's Nest City, everything nests. It's really cool. So I've made the 3-inch and the 9-inch version of each of these blocks already, and I'll sit down and sew up the 6-inch versions back to back. I'll start with the friendship star. So we'll sit down and do that, and at the end I'll talk a little bit about these quilt settings, but for now I have the instructions linked in the description below for this baby quilt and for the throw size quilt. There will be 12 blocks in total when we're finished, so that's what we're building out here. And so let's get to making these blocks. All right, I have my pattern and my pieces are all cut out and ready to go. I'm going to be making the 6-inch block, and I will put the cutting instructions up on the screen. Now you can get this pattern, it's linked in the description below, or you can just copy down the measurements off the screen. And this little visual will be helpful to you if you're getting the measurements off the screen. Those are the piece numbers, and that's the block we're making. All right, so first thing we're going to do is take our two large squares and put them right sides together. We are making 4 at a time half square triangles. So we're going to make all 4 of these in one go, and you're just going to stitch all the way around the inside of these squares, a 1/4 inch to the inside. And this is oversized, so you don't have to worry too much about being perfect. Close is good. So this block, I was doing research on it, and I couldn't find a single photograph from the 1800s that had a friendship star on it, which is weird because some of the historical information I found online says this block was used in friendship quilts in the mid-1800s. I couldn't find any, so I'm not sure if they got the friendship block name mixed up with the other quilts that are used in the photos I found in signature quilts. But anyway, so when people started settling west, they were leaving a lot of their friends and family back east, and they started making what was called signature quilts or friendship quilts. So when somebody left to head west, they would have this quilt that had all the memories of the people that they were leaving behind. All right, so let's go to the cutting table and cut this in half. So take a ruler and line it up with the seam you sewed and go ahead and cut diagonally. So without moving the fabric, turn it or turn your cutting mat, and we're going to cut the other direction diagonally. So we end up with 4 triangles. And so now we're going to set the seams. So just hit the seams with the iron. Relax those stitches. And then we'll press each one of these toward the dark side. And then when we're done, this size block, we're going to trim these down to 2.5-inch squares. The interesting thing about those signature quilts is, besides, the reason that they were making them, was at that time in history, permanent ink had just made an advance to where it became really good. at that time. You know, this is in the beginning when, before there was any manufacturing really to speak of. So, did I cut that the right size? Yes. Okay. I'm trying to talk and measure at the same time. So anyway, you know, I did read some information online that said that part of the reason for the, I guess, popularity of those signature quilts was the fact that they actually had stamps and ink that worked now. And so people were really into that. I'll put up on the screen somewhere around that era a stamp set with the alphabet. And some of the photos of the quilts were certainly done with stamps. They're people's names, and that was in the mid 1800s. So, interesting. This one's a little weird to lay out. I always have to kind of have a visual representation. There. Yeah. Okay. And the centerpiece, you can do it the same color as the, I mean, you can do it however you want, but triangle color as in the center. So I did mine white just because of the historical aspect of the signing of the inside, even though it might not be true. Okay, so now we're going to flip the center rows over on top of the left ones and start stitching these. Okay, now we can sew the right sides on. And I'm using a slightly scant 1/4 inch seam, which if you were to measure it, you would see that it's just like 2 threads short of a 1/4 inch seam. And it's just to make up for the fabric that's lost in the fold when I press to the side. I have to be careful. Sometimes I get too scant, and that's just as bad, honestly. Okay, let's press these. Set these seams. And the instructions say to press these away from the triangles. All right. Right sides together, attach these rows. And these seams are nesting up very nicely. Not sure about that last seam. We'll take a peek. Yeah, it looks good. We'll see how it measures. So these seams we're going to press open, and the way I like to do that is to set the seam first, just get it hot, then press the seam to one side. I'll probably spray a little Mary Ellen's Best Press on this one. Really helps flatten the seams. All right, cute little friendship star. Block number 2 is broken dishes, and here's the pattern. It's only got 4 pieces. We're going to be making 2 at a time half square triangles. So here's the diagram. And so this will correspond to the measurements that I'll put up on the screen if you need to pause to write those down, or you can get the pattern from the description below. So to make 2 at a time half square triangles, we are going to take our ruler and the wrong side of one of the white squares, or whatever, one of your light squares. And pretty simple, diagonally, corner to corner, draw a line. This is heat erasable. And you can even draw a line on either side of this one, a 1/4 inch away. That's where we're going to stitch. If that makes you more comfortable, a lot of people do that. And so we're going to take one of our feature fabric squares, and we're going to put this right sides together with our square with a line on it. So I'm sewing a 1/4 inch seam to the other side of this line. I can just use the lines on my tape here. All right. Same this way. I just keep the point right on this line on this tape. It's a 1/4 inch away, and this red one in the middle here is where my needle is. Okay, so now we're gonna take it over to the cutting mat and gonna slice it right on the line. So this is actually one of the oldest blocks besides actual square patchwork, dating back to the 1790s, so it's quite old. I guess it got its name just from its resemblance to broken dishes. This quilt pattern, it's, you know, like I said, really old, and it worked well for tiny scraps, which way back then, you know, they weren't manufacturing fabric in the US at that time, or if they were, it wasn't affordable, and, you know, the average Joe couldn't pay the money it cost to buy imported textiles from Europe. So every little tiny piece of scrap they could save from their clothing and old blankets, everything. The tiniest scrap had to be able to be put into a quilt to help people stay warm, you know. So I guess that's where this quilt was born from. It was just a little bit more of an organized situation than the crazy quilt, which came right before it, or which was popular right before it, which I'll put a picture up on the screen. Just, you know, any size or shape of fabric would go into one of those things. So I guess the broken dishes might have seemed like a real, I don't know, organizational feat after the crazy quilts. Okay, so we're going to do the exact same thing here. I'm not going to draw a line this time. I'm just going to line up my triangles on my tape here. All right, and we will cut this one just like we did the last. I'm going to do them the same. So 2 of them point to the inside and 2 of them point to the outside on opposite corners. And then we will take these 2 right sides together. The corners will nest. So this is the side that needs the seam, and I am going to pin these. All right, so these, there's just so few seams that I'm just going to go ahead and press them to the dark side again. So when we put these right sides together for this seam, everything nests. It's so cool. These half square triangles nest, this center seam nest, this one, everything, it just all kind of interlocks in together. It's so cool. Looks great. Set the seam. And we'll press it to one side. Doesn't matter which way. And then we'll press it open. Okay, 6-inch broken dishes. So I will see you at the design wall. Okay, so for the baby quilt, there is now cutting instructions on page 2 of this PDF. It's linked in the description below. And all the instructions are also linked below for the throw quilt, including how to make the cornerstones. And I did do a video a couple days ago demonstrating sewing these on, making the cornerstones, all of that, if you wanted to see that. I've got all my cornerstones made and sashings cut for the throw size. I do need to cut more sashing and cornerstones for the baby quilt. But other than that, pretty much on our way to making some quilts here. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.